Roundtable.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another Roundtable edition here of the Game Plan. I'm Giancarlo Aulino, joined as always here, Aaron Zaretsky, Michael Asiffo. A lot of NBA news, a lot of NBA surprises, maybe trade bait on the board here. But before we get there, Michael, you're celebrating a milestone today, the big 3-0. How you feeling?
Old. Old. I woke up and my neck hurt. Like I woke up, I looked to my right and I was like, oh. No, but yeah, you know what? It's always good to get another year on your life. There's some people who don't even make it to 30. So It's always good to, when a birthday comes, no matter how old it is, no matter how young it is, to just celebrate that because you don't know how many of these you get, right? The luckiest people on the earth get 100 of these, just 100. So every time you get one, it's just a happy experience.
And this is like a milestone for us too, because when we were on Vibe 105, we were all in our 20s, and now this is the first round table where we are all in the 30 marks. So this is a big one. Yeah. We're getting more mature here. The white hairs is flowing, it looks like. But we're going to start off here with a team that has a lot of veterans. The LA Lakers were sent packing in the NBA playoffs. A lot was made about LeBron and Luka Doncic teaming up. Shannon Sharp had the famous Lakers in 5 quotes. He had a new rhyme every week. Michael, let's start off with you. Like, this Lakers team, LeBron with apparently an injury after the game. What do you think about the Lakers in this first round exit?
It's definitely surprising. I think when they got Luka, there was some talk about them possibly being reinvigorated and taking the West, and then they went on a major win streak. But then the wheels just seemed to fall off. And a lot of it just came down to the fact that it wasn't even necessarily Anthony Edwards that killed them. I know a lot of talk was about Anthony Edwards versus LeBron and how Anthony Edwards kind of rose to the moment. And in some ways he did, for sure. But I think a lot of the talk was that Rudy Gobert basically turned into Prime Will Chamberlain for 5 games. And I don't know if that's because Rudy Gobert has all of a sudden found a soft touch around the rim, or if it's because the Lakers definitely have some issues at center, which to their credit, they tried to address by getting Mark Williams. And then, that fell through famously with Mark Williams having bad conditioning or something along those lines. And, this is unfortunately what happens when you get rid of AD. So, well, I wouldn't even say like get rid. Like you jump at the chance to get Luka. There's just no discussion. You have to get Luka if it comes to you. But the trade-off is that you don't have any interior presence, and as a result, a lot of it just comes down to basketball, right? You get rid of a center, a team with a strong center, all of a sudden kills you. It's A to B. But it's unfortunate because I think the Lakers definitely crashed out, for lack of a better term, of the NBA playoffs when they were expected to make a deep run, especially given what happened with Dallas and what happened with Memphis and the Nuggets taking a step back and OKC being young. A lot of people thought, hey, this is the Lakers' time, and it just isn't to be.
Yeah, Aaron, do you think like the Lakers' run here was a little disappointing, or was this around what you had them, like first round, if they get lucky here and make a run, but they weren't ready yet?
Like I initially had them as, making the conference finals or at the very least the second round. Because after they got Luka, they just flat out dominated. And and given how Michael said with the other teams taking a step back, it's like this is a good chance for the Lakers. But I think that like in that Minnesota series, right, Game 4 was such a big turning point of how head coach of the Lakers, JJ Redick, he used the same 5 guys for the entire second half. And, Lakers of course lose that game to go down 3-1 and then eventually lose it in 5. But in that Game 4, right, LeBron at 40 years old, He led the team in minutes with 46 minutes played.
Yeah.
And to have that and to use the same five guys for the entire second half, like, okay, I get it that during the NBA playoffs, you shorten the bench and everything, but to not use anybody else, that just put way too much pressure on LeBron to be how he was with Cleveland, right, years ago. And it's like that's just not the case. Like the other guys on the Lakers needed to step up and to take control of the game. Because yes, LeBron, even at 40 years old, he's still one of the best players in the league. But that's way too much to ask for him to basically carry you to a victory of how LeBron did that against Boston in the conference finals 2018, where he basically played the whole game to lead their team to victory. And that was just, I think that was the big turning point, and the Lakers couldn't just really recover from it. Like JJ Wright put a lot of trust in LeBron, which is understandable, but at the same time, your role players had to step up.
Yeah, I agree there. And speaking of role players having to step up, and guys and star players being relied on, Giannis Antetokounmpo on Milwaukee. They ended up getting eliminated in the first round. To a lot of fans, a surprise there. A lot of was made there about the supporting cast on his team because Damian Lillard unfortunately suffered that bad injury there, and it's probably going to be the end of his year. But I'll ask you, Aaron, this first. Like, Giannis's name has been floating around the NBA trade market right now. Do you think he actually does get traded with so much term and just having to match that kind of money if you're another team wanting him, or do you think he'll stay in Milwaukee?
Like it's definitely possible he could be traded. Like if Luka Doncic could be traded halfway during the season, anybody can be traded. And of course, with these rumors, the Raptors are somehow involved. And it's like if the Raptors were to get Giannis, the asking price is like several first round draft picks, possibly Grady Dick and like RJ Barrett or whatnot. And that's just a big price, big asking price for Giannis. But like if Milwaukee does put him on the open market, like the Raptors have a connection with Masai Ujiri, but if if he's not willing to pay that price, there will be obvious other teams to be in the mix for Giannis. And I know that he said before that he really likes in Milwaukee, helped them win the championship and everything. But so far, after they got Damian Lillard, like things just haven't worked out to plan because Milwaukee shouldn't have got knocked out in the first round. But yeah, well, it'll be very interesting to see what transpires this offseason.
Like, what do you think? Like, could you see Giannis even getting traded? Like, what would a trade like that look like, especially for Milwaukee?
I mean, look, I do agree with Aaron in the sense that like if Luka can get traded midseason, anybody can get traded midseason. And also, we know when it comes to the Raptors specifically, Masai would give up his firstborn son for Giannis. Yeah. It's an open secret how much the Raptors like Giannis Antetokounmpo. In fact, I think the reason why Project 6-7 was a thing was in large part because of Giannis and his development as a basketball player. Here's what I would say. It just in the salary cap era of the NBA, the numbers and the fit have to make sense, right? And we've seen what happens when you gut your team for a star. Even with the Damian Lillard trade, Damian Lillard is still a very good basketball player, borderline all-star to all-star level basketball player, but you saw that he just necessarily isn't as good of a fit for the Milwaukee Bucks as Drew Holiday was, even though Drew Holiday, player to player, might not be the same player, right? And so because of that, Giannis and the Giannis and Dame experiment in Milwaukee just hasn't panned out to the level people would have hoped. So I think when it comes to Giannis, is a trade possible? Yes. Do a lot of teams want him? Yes. But the fit, the asking price, and the salaries have to make sense in order for teams to really seriously consider it. And this isn't a situation where, all of a sudden someone had this out of body experience to trade a star at the deadline a la Nico Harrison with Luka, right? A lot of teams are going to be a lot more careful in their exchanges. Even though in some ways Nico Harrison isn't necessarily even wrong. Like, look what happened with Luka in the NBA playoffs when he got exposed for being a bad defender in his matchups versus various guys. So, don't get me wrong, he's still wrong. But my point is that this is all to say that these things have to make sense. You don't just trade player to player and think, oh, Giannis is a multiple-time All-Star, former MVP, is probably going to be third in MVP voting this year. Yay! Rejoice. It just doesn't work like that, and we've seen it time and time again not work like that.
Yeah, I agree with you both. It's going to be interesting. Like, if Luka Doncic can get traded, like Giannis could be a matter of time, whether it's before the season, mid-season, like it could happen. But just want to get your thoughts here first, Aaron. The NBA playoffs that had so many surprises, like Indiana, what they've been able to do is surprising. The Knicks over Boston was another one. Is there like one team right now that you think has the best opportunity, that's maybe the hot hand right now that's going for them, that you can see actually being a favorite right now that maybe you didn't expect going into it?
Yes, yeah. I would have to say the New York Knicks. Like, if they can eliminate Boston, the defending NBA champions, as we know, that would give them a lot of momentum to possibly, you know what? We just knocked out the defending champs. We're ready to run. We can make a push to the NBA Finals and possibly win a first championship since 1973. Um, they can definitely do it, and especially of how the first two games in the series against Boston has gone, where Boston became the first team to blow a 20-point lead in consecutive playoff games, which is crazy of itself. And then and Indiana's also, as you said, been so impressive too of how they've been beating up Cleveland with the crazy comebacks and Halliburton. Like, how bad does Sacramento look for giving up Tyrese Halliburton? Like, he's just playing out of his mind right now. He's really honing his craft, and it's exciting to see the parody of how Adam Silver had been wanting parody to kind of be similar to the NHL, where where the champion could be up in the grabs, could be like a handful of teams, not just one or two that will come win the championship. So and then in the Western Conference, Denver looks healthy again with Jamal Murray back. Oklahoma, they can definitely make some noise, and should be very exciting to see how the rest of these playoffs play out.
Michael, do you think we could see that? Like, the Knicks might actually turn this around where they could being that perennial like contender and championship winning team?
I mean, they definitely have a chance to do something real special. They have gotten home court against Boston, despite being the lower seed. So it's you never say never when it comes to Boston because they're just so strong and have so many permutations. Yeah. But I just think at some point on that Knicks team, someone's going to get hurt because Tibbs does Tibbs things. And you look at the minutes on all those guys, and it's a lot of minutes. It's a lot of minutes. So I just don't think so. And I actually think the team that would probably win the championship, if I guess the team that has a hot hand that would win the championship that you don't think of, is the Warriors. Give me the Warriors. I think they're battle tested. I think they have a lot of veteran presence, respected veteran presence, and also guys who have proven themselves to be playoff performers. A lot of people make fun of Draymond Green now, but a lot of people forget Draymond Green's 35, 15, and 9 in Game 7 against Cleveland. I get it. They lost the game, but Draymond Green, 35 points? Come on, right? That only really happens in the playoffs for him. Jimmy Butler has led 2 8 seeds to a NBA Finals appearance. Come on, you know what I'm saying? These are proven guys. Steph Curry has been unbelievable in playoffs past. I think when you get a battle-tested team in an open field like this, you never know. I do have questions about how they're going to be able to deal with Denver and that interior presence that Jokic brings. And OKC is OKC. But I think that when it comes to just, hey, if there's a team that you don't think of who's riding some momentum right now, who you got, give me the Warriors in the West. Give me the Warriors in the West.
Very solid picks there. And speaking of, I forgot to mention this earlier, trade bait. It looks like the annual sweepstakes for Kevin Durant is going to start again. His name has constantly been floating around here. So I'll start with you, Michael, and then to Aaron. What's the likely destination, and what's the team you think should go after him?
The likely destination is that he stays in Phoenix and stays a Sun. I just think that there isn't a lot of teams who are in the market for Kevin Durant at this stage of his career. Even though he's a very good player, there's clearly like a ceiling for Kevin Durant at this point. For whatever reason, he just is on teams that just don't perform. And I think a lot of it just has to do with the fact that Kevin Durant at this stage of his career is just not a good defender. He's just not, right? And that's okay. But he's got to be paired with the right kind of pieces. And I think, unfortunately, with Kevin Durant, the salary, the reputation, all of that, not in a bad way, not in a, like, in fact, the opposite. I think because he has such an inflated reputation, the asking price for the way back is just going to be a bit too high for Kevin Durant to work on a team to win the championship, because that team is just going to be gutted by that trade so much. So I think he stays a Sun. The team I'd like him to go on, and I think he would do really well on, is actually the Philadelphia 76ers. I think with Jared McKinn being a thing, I think with Paul George kind of declining, I think Kevin Durant kind of taking that Paul George role on the Sixers, and fingers crossed Embiid being healthy would finally bring a championship to the city of brotherly love. So I think like that would be a team if they can maintain, core pieces in that, nucleus that is Philadelphia.
Yeah. Yeah, like I would have to agree with Michael. Like I would say Philadelphia as well. Because like of how what's been going on with Philadelphia, right? With everything with Embiid and just all the media attention and just of how things so far haven't worked out, with him and Paul George and everything. But a key point would be like, would you trade Tyrese Maxey for Durant? Because Phoenix would most likely want Maxey to go the other way.
Yeah.
And if Philadelphia were to say yes, they might end up being worse, right? Because, if they were to have Durant with Maxey, then okay, that's a big addition. But if let's say they get Durant, but they don't have Maxey anymore and a few other guys, then it might not work out as they hope. And, if he doesn't stay in Phoenix and if it's not Philadelphia, then I would throw in the LA Clippers, because maybe James Harden goes the other way. Obviously, they're not going to trade Kawhi Leonard, but Durant with the Clippers, with Kawhi and, all the other guys that they have, and with Steve Ballmer, as he always is, being desperate, wanting to push the Clippers to an NBA Finals, to an NBA championship for the first ever. So, yeah, I think definitely it could be either the Clippers or Philadelphia.
Great choices there. And you mentioned like Steve Ballmer. Like, I want to know what Microsoft update they gave to Kawhi, because that was a medical miracle from where we were a couple months ago with his career. Because for him to come back in the playoffs and do what he did, will that team on and put up those numbers like similar to the Raptors almost in some games, like that was great to see. But final topic I want to get your guys' opinion on is draft lotteries and tanking, because the NHL did something really interesting on Monday with the way they broadcasted the lottery. You saw all the balls come up in real time, and we saw Utah move up from one of their spots, 10 spots, to fourth. The Islanders move up from 10 to 1. And San Jose, who had the worst record, kind of tanking throughout the year, moved down to 2. So, Michael, I'll start off with you. Like, do you think this will discourage tanking in the future? And should the NBA and like other leagues adopt this, where you're doing like the live lottery as it's going on?
It's interesting because I think there's a balance, right? It's like, okay, on one hand, you want teams to maintain parity, because if a team is forever bad due to reasons, then no fans come out, and therefore the team loses a big source of revenue, and then they fold. They either fold or they leave, right? Or relocate to another destination. But on the other hand, so that's why you have the draft lottery, because teams suck. When they suck, they get the number one pick, and then yada yada yada. But on the other hand, when you do this, you encourage teams to suck to then revitalize themselves. Now, to varying degrees, I don't think you have this problem in baseball and football, because like it takes a while for a player to develop, and one player is just not as impactful on a baseball field, on a baseball diamond or a football field, like a hockey rink or a basketball court. But I just think that like the tanking thing is overblown, and what you're getting more so is a negativity problem in both the NHL and the NBA in terms of, and I'm trying to word this properly, but in terms of like fan appreciation for going out to an arena to see a bad team. I'm convinced if people went out to see their team, then I would think that owners would probably try their best to be good every year, despite the pieces they have, to just make it to playoffs, to get a playoff spot, to get revenue. But when you're bad and people don't come out because they're negative about their team, then what ends up happening is that you get NBA owners agreeing to tank with the hopes that it's a long-term investment to then put asses in the seats. And I think, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, on the other side of the spectrum with baseball and football, they don't have a problem with attendance like that based on fan sentiment of the team. Their issues with attendance are more so revenue, experience of watching a football game, experience of watching a baseball game, if it's slow, fast-paced, et cetera, and they've made it more of an experience thing. There's pros and cons to both, but I think if the NBA and the NHL shifted to a model of making their experience of watching a game, whether your team wins or loses, a fun one, then more asses are on the seats, and therefore you de-incentivize tanking by indirect admission, right? That's the best way I could put it. So I don't know if I'm making sense here, but that's my thoughts on it.
Yeah, it could be like the parity in the league too, like coming up. Like Aaron was mentioning before as well, like the NHL, if you look at the playoffs right now, the parity, it's not like that gap where a team should be running through another team. Like Edmonton and LA had a pretty tight series, and last couple of years it wasn't that case. So the parity has shown in the playoffs, but Aaron, do you think in terms of like the bottom of the pack teams, like some teams like San Jose, the Leafs in the past before they got Austin Matthews, made it really obvious that we want that first overall pick and we want to increase our chances of getting him. And we saw what happens throughout the year. Like, do you think that is going to slowly die off, or is it still going to be the direction these owners go in?
Yeah, like I don't really see things changing because when there is a really good prospect available in the draft, teams who see, I mean, owners who see their team as like, okay, we're not going to make the playoffs, so you know what, let's just do our best to, try to get the top pick. But then it's always a gamble because you're relying on winning the draft lottery, which, you know, for Toronto Maple Leafs, right? It paid off big time winning the lottery, getting Austin Matthews. But then in the year prior with the Buffalo Sabres,
Yeah.
they tried really hard to secure the number one draft pick to get Connor McDavid, which didn't happen. And then from them losing on that just was a trickle down effect of like, okay, we have a Jack Eichel, but then he leaves for various reasons, and the Sabres haven't made the playoffs for a very long time. Um, and then yeah, San Jose, yeah, they've been a terrible team this year. They were hoping to get to win the draft lottery, which isn't the case. So, and then New York Islanders, right? They came close to making the playoffs this year, didn't happen, and now they got lucky. Huh? Pretty much, they got lucky in winning the draft lottery. You saw with the Toronto Raptors in 2006 when they weren't really expected or be in the mix to get the number one overall pick, but then they won the draft lottery. So it can go either way. It's always a gamble, and I just don't think I see anything changing since. Because you look at the NBA for this year, right, with Cooper Flag, all this talk is going to be a franchise player in the NBA one day, and then you see a team like Philadelphia, where they were supposed to be in the playoffs this season, but then as things turned out, injuries and everything happened, and then now Philadelphia, right? They're in the mix to potentially get the first overall pick, right? Which is crazy of how things can go in a season. So, um, yeah, like I don't see things changing, especially when there's a really touted prospect available.
Definitely, something to look at there, especially with these next couple of weeks coming up. The NBA Draft Lottery. I know Raptors fans are all going to be looking at that. Maybe they'll get
Yeah,
luck here. But
yeah.
on that note,
One more
oh yeah,
point,
sure.
I do like how the NHL did it with the live draft lottery, which is I would find it to be it's more transparent on the league's part, and it kind of it eliminates now the of like, oh, it's rigged, and this and that. So for everybody to see that it's done live, hopefully the NBA does it as well, so that there's no more like frozen envelope or anything like that.
Definitely there is one conspiracy theorist probably popping up online thinking Alex Ovechkin scored his all-time leading record to break Wayne Gretzky's record for his all-time leading score against the Islanders. Maybe there was a backroom deal there for him to get the first overall pick. Someone's gonna float that idea on. Maybe I'm the one that did it, but hopefully I agree with you there that that's something that is adopted because it did bring the broadcast. It made it a lot more enjoyable. Like
Yeah,
if they did that for the NBA, I think that would be
yeah.
fun.
And another point too, I just remembered is that last week, I think it was the owner of the Islanders. He was talking about of how his new arena where the Islanders play UBS Arena hasn't been getting much attention. Like people aren't really like clamoring to that new arena, or like the league as a whole isn't really seeing, their new state of the art arena. So, but now they have the first overall pick, so maybe now that will start to, satisfy the owner and be like, okay, now we have all this national attention for our building.
And before we wrap up here, just want to tell our listeners about our page, millions.co. Go check out all our content over there. As you see here on our screen, our YouTube channel. Go subscribe there. Like some of our content. Check out some of the interviews we've done in the past. Some of our roundtables are there. And follow us on social media at the GamePlan_TJP. This has been another great roundtable. We'll be back another time to talk about hopefully the Raptors getting the first overall pick and some positive news there in the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs. This was fun, guys, and see you next time.